How Roberto Carlos lives today at 83 will surprise you. It may completely change the way you see one of the greatest legends of Brazilian music, because behind the serene image, the timeless songs, and the almost untouchable aura he has built over decades, there's a routine surrounded by mystery, curious choices, little-known habits, and episodes that still raise questions and spark debates among fans and critics. And that is exactly what we're going to reveal here, in a journey that goes far beyond the bright stages and year-end TV specials, exploring intimate details, controversial decisions, and remarkable moments that helped shape who he is today at 83 years old, living in a way that few imagine and many don't even suspect, from his relationship with solitude to his personal demands that continue to be a topic of discussion behind the scenes, including stories that were barely publicized and others that generated controversy over the years, creating a complex and fascinating image that goes far beyond what we see on television. And before we dive into these revelations that may truly surprise you, make sure to leave a like, because that helps the video reach more people who are also curious about stories like this. And subscribe to the channel right now, because YouTube understands your subscription as a sign that this content is relevant, leading it to recommend more videos like this to you and to thousands of others, strengthening the channel and allowing us to continue bringing increasingly deep and surprising investigations. And if you want to support our work even more, consider sending a super thanks, which is a direct way to contribute so we can invest in higher quality content with more research and exclusive revelations. But if you can't, that's totally fine. Your comment already makes a big difference. So tell us at the end what surprised you the most. Because believe it, some of these stories will leave you thinking for a long time. And stay until the end, because the final revelation is something very few people know and that can completely change how you see Roberto Carlos today. Something impactful, unexpected, and that will certainly get people talking. The early life of Roberto Carlos was marked by a combination of simplicity, challenges, and discoveries that helped shape not only the artist, but also the man behind the public figure admired by millions to this day. He was born on April 19th, 1941, in the city of Cachoeiro de Itapemirim, a quiet inland town where he grew up in a humble family environment, surrounded by the affection of his parents and siblings. From a very young age, he showed an interest in music, something that seemed to emerge naturally, as if it were part of his essence, mainly influenced by the radio, which was one of the main forms of entertainment at the time. He spent hours listening to songs and trying to reproduce melodies, which eventually sparked his passion and curiosity for the musical world. Still in childhood, his life was marked by a difficult episode that would have a lasting impact. A train accident that resulted in the amputation of part of his right leg, an event that could have limited his dreams, but instead strengthened his determination and resilience, teaching him from an early age to face adversity and keep moving forward despite difficulties. This moment, although painful, helped build the strong and reserved personality he would carry throughout his life. Even with physical limitations, he never stopped dreaming, and music remained his refuge and his form of expression. During his teenage years, Roberto began to become more seriously involved with musical performances, participating in local radio programs where he had his first opportunities to showcase his talent. And it was during this period that he began to gain recognition in his hometown, drawing attention for his distinctive voice and romantic style that would later become his signature. His family played a fundamental role in this process, offering support and encouragement for him to pursue his artistic calling, even at a time when a musical career was seen as uncertain and offered few resources. Over the years, Roberto decided to seek greater opportunities and moved to Rio de Janeiro, which at the time was the country's main cultural center. This move represented a turning point in his journey, as it was there that he came into contact with new artists, producers, and musical influences that would help expand his horizons. However, the beginning was not easy. He faced difficulties, rejection, and moments of doubt, as happens with many artists at the start of their careers. But his persistence was essential in overcoming these obstacles. During this period, Roberto also began to build important relationships that would influence both his personal and professional life, developing friendships and partnerships that would prove fundamental in the future. Despite his growing visibility, he always maintained a more reserved demeanor, avoiding excessive exposure of his private life, a characteristic that would become a trademark throughout his life. Another important aspect of his personal story is how his emotional experiences influenced his music, as many of his feelings, life experiences, and even his pain were transformed into songs that deeply touched audiences, creating a unique connection with his fans. At the same time that his career was beginning to take shape, his personal life was also undergoing changes, with relationships, responsibilities, and challenges that contributed to his maturity. Looking back at this early period, it is clear that every experience, whether positive or difficult, played an essential role in shaping who Roberto Carlos would become, a complete artist, with a unique sensitivity and a rare ability to transform emotions into music, and above all, a man who learned from an early age to face life with courage, discretion, and a deep connection to what he loves to do. The personal life and most intimate aspects of Roberto Carlos have always sparked enormous curiosity precisely because he is an extremely private figure, someone who over decades built a massive career but chose to keep his personal life away from the spotlight, creating an aura of mystery that only increases public interest. And this begins with the way he approaches relationships and loss, which have played a profound role in his emotional journey. Roberto experienced great loves, but he also faced painful moments that deeply marked his life, one of the most impactful being the loss of his wife, Maria Rita, who passed away in 1999, an episode that deeply affected him and significantly changed his way of living, making him even more introspective and selective in his relationships. After this loss, many fans and people close to him noticed a shift in his behavior, seeing a man who became quieter, more reflective, and emotionally reserved, someone who began to value privacy and moments away from public exposure even more. Over the years, Roberto also became known for his very specific personal habits, some even considered curious or eccentric, such as his almost symbolic preference for the color blue, which has become a kind of trademark in his life and career. In addition, he shows a certain attachment to routines and customs that bring him a sense of security, something that can be interpreted as a reflection of a personality seeking emotional stability amid fame and constant pressure. Another important aspect of his private life is his strong connection to spirituality. Roberto Carlos has always demonstrated deep faith and beliefs, which intensified especially after difficult moments. This spiritual connection is reflected not only in the way he lives, but also in his music, many of which carry messages about love, faith, hope, and overcoming challenges, showing how his personal life directly influences his art. Even as one of the most famous people in Brazil, he maintains a very restricted social circle, preferring the company of a few close friends and family members, avoiding large social events and unnecessary appearances, which reinforces his image as someone who values silence and tranquility over exposure. His relationship with family is also a significant aspect, as Roberto is a father and has always shown care and discretion when dealing with his children, keeping them away from the media whenever possible and protecting them from the pressure that comes with his fame. At the same time, he carries with him stories and experiences that contributed to his emotional development, including personal challenges, moments of solitude, and difficult decisions he had to make throughout his life. Another element that draws attention is his meticulous behavior regarding his own image. Roberto has always been very careful about how he is perceived by the public, avoiding direct controversies and carefully controlling his appearances and statements, which has helped preserve his reputation over the years, but has also fueled speculation and curiosity about what he prefers not to reveal. This combination of discretion, emotional depth, and particular habits makes his personal life both admired and surrounded by mystery. And even with all his fame and success, Roberto Carlos appears to be someone constantly seeking balance, inner peace, and meaning in his experiences, living in a more reserved way, valuing simple moments, and maintaining a deep connection with his emotions and spirituality, which ultimately makes his story even more human and relatable, despite his status as one of the greatest icons of Brazilian music. The estimated fortune and financial success of Roberto Carlos are a direct result of a career built with consistency, intelligence, and a rare connection with the public over more than 6 decades. And understanding how he reached this level involves looking not only at the impressive numbers, but also at the strategic choices he made throughout his life, from the beginning of his journey, when he was still taking his first steps in music, to becoming one of the most profitable and influential artists in Latin America. Roberto has always demonstrated an unusual ability to adapt to market changes without losing his essence, which has ensured the longevity of his career and the continuity of his revenue generation. A large part of his fortune comes from record sales, as he is one of the best-selling artists in the world, accumulating hundreds of millions of copies sold, which alone represents an extremely solid financial foundation. But what truly sets his trajectory apart is the way he diversified his income sources over time, including royalties, public performances of his songs, licensing of his works, and earnings from digital platforms, which continue to generate revenue even decades after the release of his songs. In addition, his tours have always been highly profitable, with in-demand tickets and performances that attract thousands of fans, reinforcing his drawing power and ongoing relevance. Another key factor in his financial success is his relationship with major companies and media outlets, especially his long-standing partnership with TV Globo, where his traditional year-end specials have become a true cultural phenomenon and also an important source of income. These contracts, renewed over the years, guarantee not only visibility but also financial stability, consolidating his position as one of the most valued artists in the country. Roberto has also always been very selective when it comes to advertising campaigns, participating only in projects aligned with his image, which helps maintain his market value and strong personal brand. Another relevant aspect is his careful approach to managing his wealth. He is known for avoiding unnecessary risks and maintaining a conservative management of his resources, which has helped preserve and expand his fortune over time, investing in high-end real estate and ensuring financial security for the future. His ability to transform artistic talent into a true financial empire is also linked to his discipline and the control he exercises over his career, always attentive to details and strategic decisions, avoiding excesses and maintaining a long-term focus. At the same time, his lifestyle, although luxurious, is not marked by excessive ostentation, which demonstrates a balance between enjoying success and preserving the wealth he has built. Today, at 83 years old, Roberto Carlos remains a reference not only in music but also as an example of financial longevity in the artistic world, with an estimated fortune of hundreds of millions of dollars, the result of decades of work, talent, and smart decisions. And what is most impressive is that even after so much time, his songs continue to be played, consumed, and celebrated, ensuring that his financial legacy remains active and relevant, showing that his success goes far beyond the stage, being also a story of vision, strategy, and consistency over the years. The advertising partnerships and TV contracts of Roberto Carlos are one of the strongest pillars of his career outside of music, reflecting not only his immense prestige, but also the extreme care he has always taken with his public image over the years. Unlike many artists who take part in countless campaigns, Roberto has always been highly selective, and this approach has helped maintain his credibility while further increasing his value in the advertising market, making each of his appearances something rare and therefore highly valued. In the field of television, his relationship with TV Globo is one of the most remarkable and long-lasting examples in the history of Brazilian TV. Since the 1970s, he has headlined the traditional year-end specials, programs that have become practically a national tradition and are part of the routine of millions of Brazilians. These specials not only guarantee strong ratings, but also represent multi-million-dollar contracts, renewed over the decades, consolidating a partnership built on trust and mutual success. In addition, these performances reinforce his constant presence in the media, even during periods when he is not on tour or releasing new work. In the world of advertising, Roberto has participated in carefully selected campaigns that have generated major impact, precisely because of their rarity and significance. His image is associated with elegance, romance, and credibility, qualities that attract major brands willing to invest heavily to have him represent them. Another important point is that he maintains strict control over how his image is used, avoiding excessive exposure or associations that could damage his reputation. Over time, this strategy has made his name synonymous with prestige, further increasing the value of his contracts, both in television and advertising. At the same time, this relationship with the media demonstrates his ability to balance visibility and exclusivity, appearing at the right moments while keeping public interest alive, which contributes not only to his artistic relevance, but also to his financial stability and longevity in the market, showing that his success is not only the result of musical talent, but also of very well-planned strategic decisions throughout his career. The legacy and passion for music of Roberto Carlos are elements so deeply intertwined that it is practically impossible to speak of one without mentioning the other. After all, his journey is not just a story of success, but the construction of a lasting emotional connection with millions of people across generations. From his very first steps in his career to the present day, Roberto has always shown a genuine love for music, something that goes beyond a profession and manifests as a true life mission. Even in his youth, when he began performing on radio programs and small stages, it was already possible to notice his dedication and sensitivity, characteristics that would become trademarks of his style. It was precisely this authenticity that helped him gain space in a competitive scene. Throughout the 1960s, he gained national prominence as one of the leading figures of the Jovem Guarda, a movement that revolutionized Brazilian music and revealed important talents, including his great partner Roberto Carlos, with whom he built one of the most iconic partnerships in the history of music in Brazil. Together, they created songs that defined an era and helped shape the sound of a generation. What truly sets Roberto Carlos apart, however, is his ability to evolve without losing his essence. Over the decades, he transitioned through different styles, incorporating new influences and maturing his sound, always maintaining romanticism and emotion as the foundation that captivated his audience. His songs address universal themes such as love, longing, faith, and hope, which allows them to remain relevant over time, creating an immediate connection with people of different ages and backgrounds. This communicative power is one of the pillars of his legacy, as it goes beyond entertainment and becomes part of people's lives, present in meaningful moments, celebrations, and even farewells. Another fundamental aspect of his passion for music is the care he puts into every detail of his productions. Roberto has always been known for being a perfectionist, closely overseeing arrangements, recordings, and performances to ensure that the final result aligns with his artistic vision. This dedication has contributed to the consistent quality of his work and the building of a solid and respected career. Even after so many decades, he continues to show enthusiasm for the stage, delivering performances that move audiences and reinforce his connection with fans. His presence at concerts still carries a special meaning, as if each show were a reunion between artist and audience, strengthening bonds built over time. Furthermore, his legacy is also reflected in the influence he has had on countless artists, both in Brazil and internationally, serving as an inspiration for new generations who see in his journey an example of dedication, talent, and longevity. His songs have been re-recorded by various performers, crossing styles and borders, demonstrating the strength and versatility of his work. Another important point is how he has managed to remain relevant through different phases of the music industry, adapting to technological changes and new forms of consumption without losing his identity, which is no simple task in such a dynamic environment. This shows not only talent, but also intelligence and sensitivity to understand both the moment and the audience. At the same time, his relationship with fans has always been marked by respect and affection, creating a loyal base that has followed him for decades, many of whom see his music as the soundtrack of their own lives. And perhaps this is the greatest symbol of his legacy, the ability to move people, to remain present, and to continue touching hearts even after so much time. Today, at 83 years old, Roberto Carlos remains a living icon of music, someone who transformed his passion into a timeless body of work, leaving a profound mark on Brazilian and global culture, and showing that the true greatness of an artist lies not only in the success they achieve, but in how their art remains alive and meaningful over time. The current life of Roberto Carlos away from the spotlight continues to be marked by luxury, discretion, and a carefully controlled routine built over decades of success in music, as well as strategic decisions offstage. Today, in his 80s, the singer maintains a comfortable and reserved lifestyle, living mainly in Rio de Janeiro, where he owns one of his most well-known residences, considered a true private refuge with a high level of privacy, security, and privileged views, something frequently highlighted in reports and content about his routine. This house is not just a high-end property, but a space designed to offer tranquility, away from constant exposure, where he spends much of his time when he is not engaged in professional commitments. In addition, information from websites and reports indicates that the artist has accumulated an estimated net worth of around $160 million, the result not only of selling millions of records throughout his career, but also of investments, especially in the real estate sector, where he acts as a partner in high-end developments, including projects in upscale neighborhoods of São Paulo. This diversification of income helps explain how he maintains a high standard of living even with a more selective concert schedule in recent years. Another striking aspect of Roberto Carlos's current life is his relationship with luxury assets, though always with a relatively discreet profile for someone of his level of wealth. He has owned several yachts named Lady Laura in honor of his mother, and has maintained large vessels with high annual costs, reinforcing the exclusivity of his lifestyle. In addition, he uses a private jet for travel, including an executive model valued at tens of millions of dollars, which ensures comfort and privacy on both domestic and international trips. Even with all this luxurious structure, interviews over the years show that he maintains a relatively routine focused on personal habits, healthcare, and moments of introspection, especially after significant losses in his life, such as the death of close loved ones, which directly influenced his more reserved lifestyle. Another interesting aspect is that, despite being an extremely famous public figure, Roberto Carlos avoids excessive exposure outside specific periods, such as his traditional year-end specials, maintaining a controlled and rare presence in the media, which further increases the mystery surrounding his personal life. He also remains professionally active, performing shows that can still command high fees per appearance, reinforcing that even at an advanced age, his career remains financially relevant. His garage, according to reports published by various outlets, includes high-value classic and sports cars, reflecting a personal taste for rare and sophisticated vehicles, something that has always been part of his journey. However, luxury in Roberto Carlos's life is not limited to material possessions, but also to the way he has built a protected routine, with control over his image, his business, and his privacy, something rare among celebrities of his magnitude. Offstage, he lives much more quietly than many imagine, surrounded by comfort, security, and choices that reflect both his history and his personality, showing that the true luxury he cultivates today may be precisely the power to choose when to appear and, most importantly, when to disappear from the public eye. And after all this, it becomes clear that Roberto Carlos's life is far from being just what we see on television. Behind the public image of an eternal icon, there's a man who has built a routine marked by luxury, discretion, and very well-calculated choices over decades. Between mansions, exclusive travel, multi-million-dollar investments, and a career that still bears fruit, he has achieved something few artists manage: maintaining relevance without giving up his privacy. And perhaps that is exactly what is most surprising. Not just his wealth or lifestyle, but the absolute control he maintains over his own story, even as one of the most well-known figures in Brazil. Now tell me in the comments, what surprised you the most about his current life? And of course, don't forget to leave a like, because that really helps the channel grow and encourages YouTube to recommend this content to more people who are also interested in stories like this. If you're not subscribed yet, Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. There's a lot of interesting content coming your way. And before you leave, click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now, because it was specially selected for you and will definitely surprise you just as much as this one.